So it's time to talk about what gaming is like on the Apple TV. And at first, it's kind of like gaming on an iOS device or on any smartphone, which is why I chose to put this video first. This is Alto's Adventure. It is an endless runner or an endless snowboarder, and it debuted on the iPhone and iPad or on iOS months ago, but it makes the transition to the Apple TV really well. There's not much to the game control-wise other than tapping your phone or your tablet, or tapping and holding to do tricks like that. And on the Apple TV, it's as simple as clicking in the little touchpad to do your jumps, and it works perfectly. And it's also a really good looking game that looks even better, I think, on a big old screen in front of you.
Trust your feelings. I've trained 28,129,312 biological laboratories. You are a good student. Another round.
This is Lightblade Academy, a cute little 99-cent game that is basically what would happen if Portal and Star Wars had a baby.
Great move.
The reason to show it really is that it is entirely based on the motion controls of the Siri remote. So all I'm doing is turning left and right to try to deflect these.
You're almost as good as a robot. That must hurt.
It's not deep, there's not much to it, but you know, it's 99 cents and it's fun. This is Beneath the Lighthouse TV, because it's on Apple TV. It is a puzzle game that you can easily imagine rotating and using on your phone by direct manipulation. But on the Apple TV, the way it works is you use the touchpad, again, just swiping left and right to rotate these little puzzles I'm in. They're a lot of fun, actually, and quite a bit more difficult than it might seem. But it's got this adorable aesthetic. And it works really well. It makes the transition from a smartphone, dead. It makes a transition from a smartphone to the Apple TV really well. Galaxy on Fire Manticore Rising. It is a space simulation flying game. I don't know what you call that. I'm sure there's a word for it that I'm forgetting. Point is, it's like, for old school PC players, it's like X-Wing or TIE Fighter. For newfangled PC players, it would be like Elite Dangerous or Star Citizen. What you're seeing right here is something of a disadvantage of the on-demand resources part of the Apple TV, which we covered before. I sped it up here so that you didn't have to spend all your time staring at a load screen, but this is about 45 seconds. Any individual game doesn't have a large footprint on the device, so sometimes what winds up happening is you get a loading screen, and that's not necessarily like the machine is slow and it's loading it, but I think it's what's often actually happening is that the machine is downloading what it needs to put it on the device. As you can see here, it controls entirely with the Siri remote and the gyroscope. So I'm just holding the Siri remote in my right hand and rotating it left or right or up or down, because we have 360 degrees of motion to change my course. When there's an enemy in my crosshairs, it automatically fires and I'm automatically always going, although I can flick up on the touchpad for a speed boost or swipe down and hold to put on the brakes and turn around. It is not obviously as precise as, say, a controller, or God knows it's not as precise as a flight stick, but it works surprisingly well, and it looks real good too. So this is the kind of game that shows off some interesting controls and seems to push the boundaries of what the Apple TV can do graphically. I have to say, I love a good Rayman game. And the important part about this game is a theme, really, that goes through Apple TV games. And that is, there are sometimes two games sort of layered on top of each other. And by that I mean, what you're watching is me with the Siri remote. And I'm controlling it just like I would on an iPhone. Rayman's automatically running. If I swipe down like that, I do a ground pound. If I want to switch directions, I just swipe the opposite way. If I want to jump, again, I click the touchpad. Here's a little ground pounding. And it's weird not to have control over a platformer, but somehow this works really well. And I wrote this earlier this week, but the truth is it sounds like a pretty terrible way to control a game, in that the game is controlling most of it for you, especially if you're used to controlling a game on your own. But the truth is Ubisoft has really nailed this, and these games are really good. Now here's where it gets really interesting. I just completed this stage, and I have the SteelSeries Nimbus controller. Looks like sort of a hybrid between an Xbox and a PlayStation and the Wii U Pro controller. And all I did was switch it on. It connects automatically, and the moment that it connected, it now became the controller in my game. The game recognized it. It even threw up a dialog box reminding me what the controls are. And now I'm going to do the same stage with the controller. And as you can see, I have direct manipulation of Rayman, just like I would on a console. So basically, it's the same game with two entirely different layers of controls, and it couldn't possibly be easier to invoke one or the other. There's no hassle, it just happens. Now the weird thing is, I don't know which one I like better. I think I like direct control better, but because the game controls so well with the Siri controller, or with the Siri remote, I'm already thinking of it as a controller. Which is funny because it gets to the basic point I want to make, which is I find myself about half and half using the controller, like the real controller, and the Siri remote.
Deserted.
This is Transistor from Supergiant Games. What's notable about this is really two things. Number one, this game was not designed for the Apple TV, but it wasn't designed for smartphones either, although it appears on smartphones and tablets. it's a game you would expect to see on PC and on consoles, and it's there, but it's also on the Apple TV, and it looks, well, to my eyes, indistinguishable, basically, from the versions on other platforms. So it's a good demonstration of the power of Apple TV. Also, it is designed, like every game has to be, to use the Siri remote to control, and that's what you're seeing me do here. There's this cutaway that basically slows down fights, and while the world is paused around you on the right, you can choose your moves, and then leave that mode and execute your moves like you see right now. And that kind of mode works really well with the Siri remote, which is fine as a controller, but it's not a real controller and it's not precise, and this eliminates the need for precision. But you aren't limited to the Siri remote. As you can see right now, I've stopped moving, and at this very moment, I'm switching on the SteelSeries Nimbus controller, and now I'm controlling it directly with the controller. And it's a completely different way of fighting. Like, it's direct manipulation. Instead of stopping the action to choose my moves, like turn by turn, they're all mapped to A, B, X, and Y. And the great part is both are completely valid ways to play the game, but they're completely different too. And you have your choice. A choice that works particularly well on the Apple TV. This game is gorgeous. It's also the only game I've played so far that basically takes a cursor approach to control on the Apple TV. You can imagine if you were using this on a smartphone or a tablet, you would just touch where you needed to touch. Down on that little arrow, you just tap with your finger. On the Apple TV, there's a cursor, almost like a mouse. that you use to manipulate objects and to move your character around the screen. How does it work? It's okay. It's not great. It's perfectly serviceable, and I suspect that the more comfortable I get with the Siri remote and its trackpad, the easier this will be to control. But right now, there's a little bit of awkwardness, but the concept is solid. It's an understandable decision because it's not direct control of a character, and this is the compromise. What you're seeing is the very beginning of the game, which looks different than the rest of the game. I'll show you what it's like after the introduction here. And this is what gameplay is like. You see the little white cursor there on the left-hand side of the screen. I'm going to come over here and click on this little stick, which controls the character. And now I get to solve a puzzle. And this is just another example of the kind of puzzles you'll find in the game that are again based on essentially a mouse cursor that you're controlling with the trackpad. This is Xenowerk from PIXELBITE Games, last but not least. It is what I would normally call a twin-stick shooter, except on Apple TV, you're not guaranteed 2 sticks. So it has, like other games, 2 modes. This one's interesting because you hold the Siri remote sideways or long ways, like you were holding an NES controller. And in this mode, which is perfectly fine, but not super precise, there's a generous auto-aim mechanic that basically makes up for you not having a second stick. So as soon as you start firing, it starts shooting at the bad guys. So everything you've seen so far has been me using the Siri remote as the controller. But right now, I'm gonna back up, make sure I'm safe, flick on the SteelSeries Nimbus controller, and within a couple of seconds, I am controlling directly. So it is actually a twin-stick shooter at this point. The advantages, I think, are pretty obvious for anybody who's played a twin-stick shooter. You can see, as I spun around there, I have absolute control over where I aim, which is what I want in most circumstances. Although, interestingly enough, this game retains the auto-aim mechanic when you're using both sticks. So if you don't aim with the right stick, it will zero in on an enemy. That's not something I use a lot, which is maybe because of pride as much as anything else. But, you know, it's actually pretty good. The whole game's built around these little levels, and I mean fairly little. You know, there may be 10 levels themed this way, and there's a lot of levels that use the same assets. So it can get a little bit confusing in that way, but luckily the map is just a button press away, and it doesn't tell you exactly where you need to go, but you can pretty much tell by where there are live mutants that you haven't been there yet. The other impressive thing I have to say about the game is that it looks really good. It is clearly running at 60 frames a second. It only rarely stutters, and that's only when there are tons of enemies and explosions on screen, which isn't all that often. And that kind of thing isn't unheard of on consoles or PCs. Like, this looks good with no asterisks. It's not just for a console game, not just for an Apple TV game. It's a good-looking game, period. And it's not casual, although there are conceits for people who don't have a controller, and I think the game would be perfectly fine that way. But this is, to my mind, the absolute best reason to buy a controller for the Apple TV right now.